In the world of survival horror, there are many games that deserve sequels or even remakes. Some of these games are considered underrated, and one of the most requested sequels is for
The Suffering.
In a place where nothing is what it seems, you will choose your path and uncover the truth behind.
The Suffering is a first and third person shooter / horror game released in 2004 for PlayStation 2, Xbox, and PC, developed by Surreal Software and published by Midway. Surreal Software was an American game developer, part of Warner Bros. Interactive Entertainment, also known as Warner Games. Warner Games purchased most of Midway's assets when Midway went bankrupt in 2009, taking over Surreal. Surreal Software released 5 games but were known for Draken and The Lord of the Rings before Warner Bros. Merged them into Monolith Productions. The Suffering was written and designed by Richard Rouse and composed by Eric Aho. The game follows Torque, a prisoner on death row for, spoiler alert, being responsible for the death of his ex-wife and 2 children, a crime that he has no memory of. Torque arrives in Abbott State Penitentiary on Carnet Island off the coast of Maryland when an earthquake hits the island, spawning monsters that start attacking the prison. Torque must fight his way out while also trying to remember what really happened to his family. Torque can be controlled either in first person or third person throughout the entire game. You can run, jump, shoot, interact with the environment and NPCs, and you can also use many items which include flashlights, flares, Molotovs, TNT, flash grenades, and shrapnel grenades. Torque is able to use many weapons like a Tommy gun, dual revolvers, a shotgun, a .357 revolver, a flamethrower, an axe, and of course, a shiv. I guess even video games know there's no prison without shanks. Torque is also able to transform into a monster, often called the Creature, by filling up an insanity meter. The transformation first takes place when he is attacked by inmates, but transforms at will after being provoked by the 3 spirits of Carnet Island. While Torque is transformed, he is able to attack in 3 different ways. A standard attack where he slashes enemies, a leap attack where he throws himself with his bladed limb, and a ground pound attack that sends shockwaves to enemies. The longer you stay as the Creature, the more the insanity meter goes down, causing you to lose health, which results in death. You can only heal in human form. A big part of the game is Torque's morality. In many situations, the player will find himself with 3 moral choices. You can either do good, do evil, or be neutral. For example, you may be presented with the choice of killing or helping or doing nothing to an NPC, which at times you may recruit to help you. A hallucination of Torque's wife will attempt to convince you to take a good path, while demonic voices attempt to get you to do evil. These moral choices affect the ending of the game. The Suffering has 3 endings based on the choices you make throughout the game, each of which have a different version of what happened to Torque's family. The Suffering was more than well received and has sold over 1.5 million copies. It was even credited for being Midway's comeback at that time, as their most recent games had underperformed. This was enough good news for a sequel in 2005 called The Suffering: Ties That Bind, released for the PlayStation 2, Xbox, and PC.
Something dark and unspeakable left you deeply scarred. Now you must return home to cut off the evil at its source. But to defeat your enemies, you first have to conquer your own demons and make the choice between good and evil. Who's next?
Ties That Bind begins by revisiting Torque's stay in prison 5 years before the events of the first game, in which he and his friend Miles are confronted by Blackmore, the man responsible for their imprisonment. A prison riot starts, and after being separated from Miles, Torque experiences visions of the monsters he would face 5 years later. In the present day, Torque heads back to his hometown of Baltimore, which is filled with monsters from Carnet Island, only to be captured by a paranormal military organization known as the Foundation. The leader of the Foundation is a woman named Jordan who wants to study Torque and his connection to the creatures incarnate. Torque escapes and is prompted by the ghost of his dead wife Carmen to return to his apartment and investigate the death of his family. Blackmore is later revealed to have always been in Torque's life pulling strings. Blackmore is voiced by Michael Clark Duncan, who you may know from Green Mile or many other great movies. Rest in peace. Ties That Bind's gameplay is essentially the same for the most part, but the player can no longer carry around Sombian bottles to refill their health whenever they need to, and you are now limited to only 2 weapons at a time. If you finished the first game and kept the save file, you can choose from evil or good morality based on the ending you had before. Ties That Bind also features 3 different endings depending on the player's actions throughout the game. The Suffering Ties That Bind was also well received, but just not as much as the first. In fact, the criticism that was received was that Ties That Bind was inferior to the first game, with some stating that it felt more like an expansion. Other criticism included issues with the story staying stuck in the past and also many bugs and glitches. Praises were made for the gameplay, the acting, the fear factor, and the design. Midway announced that Ties That Bind did not sell well along with another game called LA Rush, and they even reported a $29.1 million loss. In 2017, both games were digitally released on GOG.com, previously known as Good Old Games, and are still available today. So, where is The Suffering 3? It is important to note that Warner Bros. Owns the rights to the game, so any decision made has to be from them first. There has been no official word as to why The Suffering 3 has not been worked on. Most of the team from The Suffering has already separated to be in different projects since the first game. A film was in the works from MTV Films and Midway back in 2006, which would have helped create buzz for another game. The movie was being worked on by Stan Winston, but the project was cancelled. No reason has been given as to why. There are films with the name The Suffering and Ties That Bind, but they have nothing to do with the series. Richard Rouse had first thought about a multi-game series, but then stated that each game should be a standalone experience. In an interview with IGN, Richard Rouse said, quote, "In Ties That Bind, we are definitely introducing as many questions as we are answering, leaving plenty of opportunity for more games in the future. But again, what's of paramount importance to me is to make a game that players can finish and feel they have received a complete experience, not that they need another chapter to get closure," unquote. So it's safe to say a part 3 was not in development. Fans have of course pitched in, including names for sequels, storylines, and artwork, but that is all that they can do for now. The Suffering is not officially dead, so a sequel and or remake can still be worked on. Horror games are still doing great, and if there were ever a time to work on a sequel, it would be now. Before we go, let's take a look at some extra facts about the Suffering series. The monsters in the game were designed by Stan Winston, the Oscar-winning special effects creator known for his work in Aliens, Terminator 2, Jurassic Park, and more. Rest in peace. After completing the Suffering game, a bonus level becomes available titled Waiting to Die. The bonus is a prelude level that takes place when Torque first arrives on the island. There's an overpowered weapon called Gonzo gun, which is a chicken gun that shoots eggs out of its ass. In The Suffering 2, there's a weapon called the Swizzle Stick. It can kill most enemies with one hit and make them explode. Richard Rouse is also the author of the book Game Design, Theory and Practice, which includes details about the Suffering's development. If you beat Ties That Bind in Impossible mode, you get an extended ending. This video is part of our Lost Games series where we talk about games that deserve a sequel and or remake. Please let us know which game you think deserves a sequel so that we can add it to our list. Thanks for watching, hit that like button if you enjoyed this video, and follow us for more content like this at Game Circle TV.